So first question, have you ever wondered what happens when a sudden healthcare crisis leaves your family facing overwhelming long-term care costs? Great question. And so the typical fact scenario is you have some sort of healthcare crisis. You know, a loved one has a stroke or they take a fall and break their hip, and all of a sudden they find themselves needing long-term care or having to move into a skilled nursing facility. When it comes to how this is handled from a cost standpoint, everyone in this country or in the United States, when they reach age 65, they qualify for Medicare. Medicare only covers about 100 days of rehabilitation care. After that, you have to look at how you're going to pay for the continued long-term care. It comes down to two basic options. One, you can sell, well, not two options. There's really three options. One, if you have long-term care insurance, that's great. That's going to cover a good chunk of it. Two, you can look at self-paying, or three, you have the option of looking at Medicaid. And the long-term care costs are substantial. They can be anywhere between $8,000 and $10,000 a month. And when you're dealing with something like dementia, the length of stay can be 4 or 5 years or even longer than that. And so you can look at eating through life savings very quickly. The issue with Medicaid is that there's restrictions on how much you can own. And so basically, if you have more than $2,000 to your name, you have to get rid of all that money in order to qualify for Medicaid. Many people believe it's too late to do anything once a crisis hits. Why is this a common and costly misconception? It's a common misconception simply because of what I just mentioned about Medicaid having low asset levels, only having $2,000 to your name. Most people have more than $2,000 to their name, and so people just assume that they won't be able to qualify for Medicaid. And it's costly because they end up eating through their life savings paying for that care. When there are strategies out there that allow us to save a good chunk of that change. What is Medicaid crisis planning, and how does it differ from proactive long-term planning? So Medicaid crisis planning is exactly what it sounds. So the fact scenario, typical fact pattern, someone gets hurt, their dementia or Alzheimer progresses to a point where they need long-term care. And it's a crisis because you have to solve that problem now, right? You can't push it off into the future. You have that 100-day window that Medicare covers in order to make arrangements to pay for that long-term care. It differs from proactive long-term planning in that with proactive long-term planning, the plan is already in place. You have a trust as the basis of your estate plan. Maybe you have a Medicaid asset protection trust. Maybe you've titled your house, and depending on the state you're in, there's certain things we can do with a deed in order to protect assets. But this is all done ahead of time. And really, proactive planning is the preferred choice. It really is a situation where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. For a relatively low percentage, you can end up saving hundreds of thousands of dollars as opposed to that going to the nursing home. What are the strict rules that make Medicaid so difficult to navigate on your own, especially in an emergency? So there's a few key points or strict rules with Medicaid that you need to know about. One is the look-back period, the 5-year look-back. When you apply for Medicaid, they're going to take a look at what you've done with your money and assets for the past 5 years. And if you've made any sort of a transfer to people that isn't allowed, you're going to get penalized. So if you give away, let's say that $2,000 threshold that you need to stay under in order for Medicaid, let's say you gave away $100,000 in order to get below that $2,000 threshold. Medicaid's going to see that, and then they're going to assess a penalty based upon the daily cost of care. So using that $100,000, let's say the daily cost of care is $10,000, just to keep the math simple, you're going to have to pay, $10,000 a month. You're going to have to self-pay for 10 months, for 10 months, 100,000 divided by 10 is 10. You're going to have to self-pay for 10 months before you can qualify for Medicaid. And so that's a big issue, is the 5-year look-back period. And then the asset limits as well. There's not everything counts towards that $2,000 threshold. There are some things that are considered exempt transfers or exempt assets. For example, you can you can keep up to, it varies by state, but let's say $500,000 equity in your home. So if you own your home outright and it's worth less than $500,000, you can keep your house. Same thing if it's a situation where you have a husband and wife. One of them is going into a nursing home, and then the community spouse, that's what Medicaid calls the healthy spouse that's not going into a nursing home, they're allowed to stay in the house, right? They don't want to make the healthy spouse destitute. And so there's very strict rules and exceptions to those rules that can be used to get you qualified for Medicaid, but you really have to have someone that knows the system and knows how to properly transfer things and title things in order to qualify for Medicaid. Why is the first instinct to just give away assets so dangerous, and what are the severe consequences of this mistake? Just mentioned that the consequences of just giving away assets is the penalty period. You can end up having to self-pay for a very long period of time if you give away $200,000. And it's really that as before, that eats through life savings. You know, if you give away something in that 5-year look back period, Medicaid will see it, and then you're going to end up self-paying for a long period of time. How does an elder law attorney act as a crucial guide helping families avoid these common expensive pitfalls? So an elder law attorney is going to know these rules. They're going to have resources at their hand that's going to allow them to preserve assets, protect assets, and then make sure the nest egg, the person that's going into a nursing home, their life savings, goes to their family as opposed to going to the state or Medicaid. Can you provide an example of a legal strategy an attorney might use in a crisis to protect assets? And so, a very common one that you may hear is what's called a Medicaid compliant annuity. And so depending on the situation, whether it's a single person or a married person, that will drive how it's structured. But what a Medicaid compliant annuity does is it takes a non-exempt asset, let's just say $200,000 in a bank account, and transfers it into an exempt asset. And so what that does is it allows you to qualify for Medicaid while still receiving some of the benefit of that money. Another one is legal spin down strategies. So again, let's say a husband and wife, one is going into a nursing home, one is staying at the house. You can pay down the principal on the mortgage. That's a legal spin down strategy. You can do renovations to the home. Let's say you have to put a ramp in the house to allow wheelchair access or something along those lines, or renovate a bathroom to allow someone who's disabled or has mobility issues to get into the bathroom. All those are legal strategies, and an elder law attorney is going to be familiar with those and be able to provide advice on how to utilize those Medicaid compliant annuities, converting assets from one form to another, and then spin down strategies in order to get you qualified or get your loved one qualified for Medicaid. How can an attorney help a community spouse, again, the one not needing care, avoid financial ruin and maintain their standard of living? And so what an attorney can do with the community spouse is, with those Medicaid compliant annuities, oftentimes what we can do is we can increase their monthly income. And so if you have someone that's just relying on Social Security to meet their monthly needs, and there's an IRA out there, what we can do is we can transfer that IRA into a Medicaid compliant annuity that then increases the community spouse's monthly income and allows them to maintain their standard of living, if not improve it somewhat. Beyond saving money, how does an expert handle this process, reduce the immense stress and emotional burden on a family already in crisis? And really, having an elder law attorney help you through this process gives you peace of mind, right? They provide a clear-cut strategy. They'll handle the paperwork, make sure that money or the assets are properly titled, navigate all the intricacies of the Medicaid rules, and give you clear guidance on how you're going to be able to navigate this crisis. If a family is in crisis right now, why is time of the essence, and what is the single most important action they should take? Time is of the essence because the clock is ticking, right? Particularly if you're in that 100-day window where Medicare is covering the rehabilitation of the fall or the stroke or whatever the case may be. There's a deadline. There's a deadline where you're going to have to start writing the check to a nursing home. It's imperative that you get with an elder or meet with an elder law attorney to, one, see what your options are, and then two, develop a strategy that will allow you to protect as much as possible. What is the final message you want families to take away about early legal guidance and their ability to secure their future even when facing an emergency? Final message is plan ahead, right? If you can plan ahead, put in proactive strategies, that is the absolute best option. However, if you find yourself in a situation where you're facing a crisis, please reach out to an elder law attorney as soon as possible. They'll be able to assess your situation and get a plan in place that hopefully will allow you to qualify for Medicaid, reduce that stress, and get your loved ones the care they need.